The question of Oukos is one which is a mystery to me.
I am satisfied that it is the wish of the French government to assist Africa in implementing the resolution 435.
It was a quiet morning in Koro, a small town tucked away in the hills of western Kenya, the kind of place where life moved slowly and people knew their neighbors. But on February 13th, 1920, something unimaginable happened. Dr. Robert Oukos, Kenya's Minister of Foreign Affairs, vanished from his home without a trace. Just 4 days earlier, he had returned from the high-profile trip Washington, D.C. alongside President Daniel Arap Moi. To many, Oukos was more than just a politician. He was a man of integrity, diplomacy, and vision. Some even whispered he could be the next president. But power attracts envy. And in Kenya's tense political climate, ambition could be dangerous. 4 days after he disappeared, his body was found at the base of Got Alila Hill, burned, broken, and shot in the head. The discovery shocked the nation. A respected statesman executed like a criminal. Immediately, rumors of betrayal and cover-ups began to spread. Top government officials were implicated. Evidence went missing. Witnesses recanted their statements or died under suspicious circumstances. International investigators pointed fingers. Commissions were formed, yet decades later, the case remained unsolved. Why was Robert Oukos killed? Who wanted him silenced? And why has no one ever been held accountable? This isn't just a murder story. It's a story about power, fear, and silence at the highest level of government. In this episode, we revisit that case that shook Kenya to its core, the murder of Robert Oukos. To understand the weight of Robert Oukos' murder, we first have to understand the man himself. And before that, welcome to Dark Echoes, where true crimes whisper through the shadows and the past refuses to stay silent. If you love chilling stories in bite-sized pieces, like, share, and subscribe, and let the echoes pull you in. Dr. Robert John Oukos was born on March 31st, 1931 in Nyahera, Kisumu County. From an early age, he showed signs of brilliance. His academic journey led him far beyond Kenya's borders. He earned his bachelor's degree from Makerere University in Uganda and later his master's from the University of Glasgow. Eventually, he completed a PhD in public administration from the University of Minnesota, making him one of the most academically accomplished politicians of his time. His education wasn't just for show, it translated into results. Oukos was a technocrat in the truest sense. He first joined government services in the 1960s, rising quickly through the ranks due to his intelligence, work ethic, and diplomatic finesse. He wasn't loud or showy. He didn't seek attention, but when he spoke, people listened. In 1979, Oukos was elected Member of Parliament of Kisumu Rural. By 1983, he was appointed Minister for Industry. Then in 1988, President Daniel Arap Moi made him Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a role that would bring him into the international spotlight. As Foreign Minister, Oukos represented Kenya in the world stage with dignity and poise. He was known for being articulate, strategic, and respectful. Western leaders admired, journalists respected him, even political opponents admitted he was sharp, but that admiration came with a price. In early 1990, Oukos accompanied President Moi on a state visit to Washington, D.C. It was during this trip that things started to shift. According to multiple reports, Oukos was treated with great favor by U.S. officials. He was even said to have met privately with President George Bush, an honor rarely afforded to a cabinet minister traveling with a head of state. Back home, he caused tension. Some saw Oukos' warm reception in Washington as a threat to Moi's authority. Others believe he was being favored by Western powers, perhaps even being positioned as a successor to Moi. Whether those rumors were true or not didn't matter. In the world of high-stakes politics, perception is often more dangerous than reality. Oukos also had another mark against him, his integrity. In a time when corruption was rampant, Oukos had a reputation for being clean. He reportedly kept detailed records, spoke out against misuse of public funds, and distanced himself from shoddy dealings. There were whispers that he intended to expose top-level corruption in the government. If true, that would have made him a direct threat to powerful men with much to lose. Yet, despite the pressure building around him, Oukos remained composed. He returned to Kenya after the Washington trip and quietly retreated to his countryside home in Koro. Perhaps he knew what was coming, or perhaps he believed his principal would protect him. But on February 13th, 1990, everything changed. That night, Oukos disappeared from his home under mysterious circumstances. No one had a struggle. His security detail didn't raise an alarm. For 4 days, his whereabouts remained unknown until a shocking discovery at the foot of a nearby hill. Dr. Oukos was dead. His leg was broken. His body had been burnt, and he had been shot in the head. The nation was stunned, but to those who truly understood Kenyan's politics at the time, the message was clear. Someone had silenced Oukos, and they had done it brutally. Oukos' murder wasn't just the loss of a statesman. It was the assassination of hope, the extinguishing of rare, honest voice in a sea of political greed. His death will set off one of Kenya's most controversial investigations, sparking international outrage, government cover-ups, and decades of unanswered questions. But before we unravel the mystery, one thing remains certain. Dr. Oukos was not an ordinary man, and his murder was no ordinary crime. Dr. Oukos returns to Kenya after a diplomatic trip to Washington, D.C. The trip had sparked controversy back home, allegations that Oukos received special treatment from U.S. officials, possibly even meeting with President George H.W. Bush behind closed doors. Tension reportedly high upon his return. Some say he had fallen out of favor with President Moi's inner circle. Others say he knew something dangerous. Just one day after returning, Oukos travels to his rural home in Koro, Kisumu County. It meant to be a break from the political heat. He is joined by his wife Christabel, his children, and a government security detail. That evening, everything seems normal until it isn't. In the early hours of February 13th to 14th, Oukos vanished. His family wakes up and find his bedroom empty. His shoes are still by the bed, his toothbrush untouched. There's no sign of a struggle. His guards, stationed outside, claim they had nothing. No gunshots, no shouting, no vehicle sounds, nothing. It's as if he simply disappeared. Panic sets in quickly. A search begins in the nearby area. For 3 days, there's no trace of him. Government officials remain silent. Rumors fly. Some say he's in hiding. Others claim he's been abducted by the state's agents. A few even fear the worst. Then on February 17, the worst is confirmed. A herder discovered a burnt body at the base of Got Alila Hill, roughly 2.8 kilometers from Oukos' home. The body is unrecognizable at first, but documents, a ring, and dental record confirm the horrifying truth. It is Dr. Robert Oukos. His body tells a disturbing story. His leg is fractured, likely broken before death. He had a bullet wound to the head, suggesting execution. His corpse had been set on fire, partially charred. Some investigators believe this was an attempt to destroy evidence. Others see it as symbolic, an act of erasure. The public is outraged. News of Oukos' death spread across Kenya like wildfire. Protests erupt. Journalists descend on Kisumu. People demand answers. Who killed Oukos? Why? And how could a man surrounded by guards vanish and be found murdered just kilometers away? President Moi publicly condemns the murder and promises a full investigation, but suspicion is already turning inward. Many believe this was not the work of ordinary criminal, but something far more calculated, something political. Even the following weeks, several bizarre details emerged. For instance, Oukos' house staffs and guards give inconsistent statements. Some of his personal documents disappear. The body sites seem tampered with, almost staged. It quickly becomes clear this was just a murder. It was an execution, and whoever did it had powerful protection. From the moment Dr. Robert Oukos' body was found, one thing became painfully clear. This was not a random crime. It was targeted, deliberate, and calculated. Oukos was no ordinary man, and his death sent shockwaves not just across Kenya, but around the world. People demanded justice. Investigators were called in, and slowly theories began to emerge, each more disturbing than the last. One of the most dominant theories was that Robert Oukos had become too powerful and too popular for his own good. During the trip to Washington, D.C., it's believed Oukos was favored over the officials. Some sources claim he was offered private meetings with high-ranking U.S. figures, including the president. In a highly insecure regime, such attention could be seen not as an honor but as a threat. Back home, jealousy brewed within President Moi's cabinet. Whispers spread that Oukos has been groomed as a possible successor to Moi, a nation that infuriated those close to the president. Could his murder have been a warning or a way to eliminate a rival before he rose any higher? Another theory links Oukos to Kisumu molasses plant scandal, a project intended to revive a defunct sugar plant in his home region. There were allegations of financial mismanagement and corruption involving high-ranking officials. Some believe Oukos had gathered damning evidence about corrupt dealings tied to the project and planned to expose those involved. If true, this would have made him a direct threat to several powerful figures in Moi's government. A close ally of President Moi and known for his iron fist approach, Biwott was rumored to have clashed with Oukos. Scotland Yard's chief investigator, Detective John Troon, named Biwott as a key suspect, pointing to a possible power struggle and personal animosity. Witnesses claimed Biwott had confronted Oukos in Nairobi shortly after their return from the US, but despite mounting suspicion, Biwott was never charged and has always denied involvement. Oyugi was the man in charge of state security at the time. He was amongst the few with the power and resources to orchestrate an abduction of this scale. He was also named in Troon's report and detained for questioning, though he too was later released. Perhaps the most unexpected suspects. Anguka was the only person ever formally charged with Oukos' murder, but his case quickly collapsed in court due to lack of evidence, and some believe he may have been a scapegoat used to distract from high-level involvements. As public pressure mounted, the Kenya government invited Scotland Yard to lead an independent investigation. Detective John Troon arrived and immediately began uncovering disturbing details. For instance, evidence of a possible government cover-up, intimidation of witnesses, conflicting timeline, and suspicious movement among top officials. Preliminary reports strongly implied that the murder was political and possibly carried out by individuals in government. But his investigation was soon shut down. He was forced to leave Kenya under increasing political pressure. His findings were never officially adopted. Over the years, several commissions of inquiry were launched, each promising justice but delivering none. Witnesses died mysteriously. Documents went missing. The deeper the investigation went, the more resistance they met. Oukos' family, particularly his brother Barack Mbaja, remained vocal, insisting that high-level government figures were behind the murder, but no one had ever been convicted. The case remains officially unsolved. The truth about Robert Oukos' death may be known by a few, but protected by many. It was a crime that didn't just take one man's life. It shattered a nation. It shattered a nation's trust in its own government. So, what really happened on that quiet night in Koru? Was it personal vendetta, a political execution, or a state-sanctioned cover-up? The murder of Robert Oukos wasn't just a political tragedy, it was a national trauma. A clean, respected leader had been brutally silenced. A decade later, the silence around his death still echoes through Kenya's political halls. After his death, the government attempted to appear proactive. President Moi publicly condemned the killing and promised swift justice. But behind the scenes, the machinery of silence had already begun turning. Across Kenya, thousands mourned. In Kisumu, crowd filled the streets in grief and outrage. Demonstrations turned tense. Riot police were deployed. The people demanded justice, but what they got was pain. For the first time in years, the cracks in Moi government were fully visible. Kenyans had long suspected corruption and political repression, but Oukos' murder confirmed their worst fears. No one was safe, not even at the top. Several investigations followed, including one led by Scotland Yard John Troon. His findings suggested high-level involvement and named specific individuals. But instead of pursuing justice, the government discredited the report, sent Troon home, and buried the case under bureaucracy. The Gisheru Commission, established in 1991 to look into the murder, was abruptly dissolved by the President Moi before it could deliver any final conclusions. Witnesses were intimidated or disappeared. Files went missing. Evidence was tampered with. What was once a mission for truth became an exercise in frustration. Even when new evidence occasionally surfaced, like testimonies or leaked document, it was often suppressed or dismissed as politically motivated. Through all the silence, one voice never wavered: Oukos' family. His brother Barack Mbaja became a fierce advocate for justice. He publicly accused key members of Moi government of orchestrating the murder. He publicly detailed reports, called for international investigation, and refused to look, even as threats mounted against him and his loved one. Christabel, Oukos' widow, maintained her dignity and demanded answer that never came. To this day, the family had never received a full account of what really happened or who ordered the hit. More than 30 years later, the case remains one of Kenya's darkest mysteries. No one has been convicted. No one has taken responsibility. And yet, everyone seems to know the truth. Dr. Robert Oukos has become a symbol, not just of injustice, but of what Kenya lost. A leader with a vision, a man of intellect and integrity, someone who could have taken the country in a new direction. His murder became a warning to others in the government. Don't ask too many questions, don't get too clean, and above all, don't rise too fast. But it also awakened a new generation, one that began to question the system, challenge the power, and demand accountability. His story became part of Kenya's collective memory, taught in classrooms, discussed in journalism, whispered about in parliament. Robert Oukos died a brutal death, but in that death, he became something more than just a politician. He became a symbol of resistance, of truth, and of painful prayers of honesty in a dishonest world. The question now is not just who killed him, but why so many stayed silent. Until the truth is known, justice for Robert Oukos remains unfinished. Dr. Robert Ouko's murder was more than a tragedy. It was a statement, a warning whispered through every corridor of power in Kenya. Speak too much, rise too high, and you disappear. But the truth has a way of surviving, even when justice doesn't. If this case chills, wait until you hear about the disappearance tied to Kenya's secret torture chambers of Nyayo House, where truth was buried underground and screams were swallowed by silence. Make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and join me in my next episode as we uncover what really happened behind those walls. Because in this series, no secret stays buried forever.